Namo Sakamuni Buddha. Namo Sakamuni Buddha. Namo Sakamuni Buddha.
All right, thank you. Okay, yeah. Let me share the screen so we can read the part that we left last time. Mm. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Thang Thieng. Can you read, please?
Yeah, well, in addition, the starving spirit, the fire raging about their heads, hungry, thirsty, tormented by the heat, waged this way and in that, in terror and confusion. Such was the state of that house, truly frightening and fearful, malicious injury, the havoc of fire, many ills, not just one afflicted it. At this time, the owner of the house was standing outside the gate when he heard someone say, "A while ago, your various sons, in order to play their games, went inside the house. They are very young and lack understanding. They will be wrapped in their amusements." When the rich man heard this, he rushed in alarm into the burning house, determined to rescue his sons and keep them from being burned by the flames. He urged his son to heed him, explaining the many dangers and the peril, the evil spirit, and the poisonous creatures, the flames spreading all around, the multitude of suffering that would follow one in another without end, the poisonous snakes, lizards, and vipers, as well as the many jacksas and commanded demons, the jackals, foxes, and dogs, hawks, eagles, kites, owls, ground beetles, and similar creatures, driven and tormented by hunger and thirst. Truly things to be feared. So the meaning is that so his son is his mind is engrossed in playing the games. They are after their uh, they're after their amusement, and they are the one that is difficult. Ha- um, have a trouble. They are so young that um, whenever his father tell him to do something, they're the one that won't listen to their father. They're the one that will be in a place where the bad things will happen to them, and they will be the one that will be play the game of samsara. They are the one that will likely to create the bad karma, and so his father that want try his best to get his son to be out of the game of samsara. So he doesn't want his son to be to stuck in these situations. So he want to give his son that what would happen if he don't listen to his fathers, and that they would be in a lot of troubles that will bring harm to his sons.
Okay.
So okay, yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so yeah, so we know the story, right? The fathers saw the house that was burning, and his sons playing in there. So he just jumped in to tell them to get out and tell them the serious situation of this house, the burning house. Yeah, go ahead, William, please.
His sons could not stay in such a perilous place, much less when it was all on fire. But the sons had no understanding, and although they heard their father's warnings, they continued engrossed in their amusements, never ceasing their games. At that time the rich man thought to himself, "My sons may behave in this manner, adding to my grief and anguish. In this house at present there is not a single joy, and yet my sons, wrapped up in their games, refuse to heed my instructions and will be destroyed by the fire." Then it occurred to him to devise some expedient means, and he said to his sons, "I have many kinds of rare and marvelous toys, wonderful jeweled carriages, goat carts, deer carts, carts drawn by big oxen. They are outside the gate right now. You must come out and see them. I have fashioned these carts explicitly for you. You may enjoy whichever you choose, play with them as you like." When the sons heard this description of the carts, at once they vied with one another in dashing out of the house, till they reached the open ground, away from all peril and danger. When the rich man saw that his sons had escaped from the burning house and were standing in the crossroads, he seated himself on a lion's seat, congratulating himself in these words, "Now I am content and happy." So this passage discusses the expedient means that the rich man devised to save his sons. Knowing his sons well, he told them that the things they like to play with are outside. I use this same sort of thing with my daughter sometimes.
Really?
So yeah, it's like, if you behave, then you'll get this thing. If you don't behave, then you'll lose this thing. And it's expedient, rather than having like a 10-minute conversation about whatever it is and it not really leading to any change. The approach really works.
So again, we discussed before, right? So the rich man, his lie or what?
Well, his motivation is purely compassion for his son. So generally, if we're lying because it's self-interested and we want to just benefit ourselves. But he's really trying to help someone else. And it is true that outside of the house, all of those carts exist, not immediately outside of the house, but later he then also gives them a really nice carriage, nicer than the ones that he mentioned. So, I mean, he is kind of saying, he's saying something that's untrue. He doesn't actually have those particular carts immediately outside of the house. But I think this is a circumstance where it's okay to say something that's untrue in order to save the life of his children.
Okay, yes, thank you. Ms. Thân Như, can you read, please?
Yes, Thầy. These sons of mine have been very difficult to raise, ignorant, youthful, without understanding. They entered that perilous house with its many poisonous creatures and its goblins to be feared. The roaring flames of the great fire rose up on all four sides, yet those sons of mine still clung to their games. But now I have saved them, caused them to escape from danger. That is the reason, good people, I am content and happy. At that time the sons, seeing their father comfortably seated, all went to where he was and said to him, "Please give us the 3 kinds of jeweled carriages you promised us earlier. You said if we came out of the house, you'd give us 3 kinds of carts, and we would choose whichever we wished. Now is the time to give them to us." The rich man was very wealthy and had many storehouses. With gold, silver, lapis lazuli, seashells, agate, and other such precious things, he fashioned large carriages beautifully adorned and decorated, with railings running around them and bells hanging from all sides. Ropes of gold twisted and twined, nets of pearls stretched over the top, and fringes of golden flowers hung down everywhere. Multicolored decorations wound around and encircled the carriages. Soft silks and gauzes served for cushions, with fine felts of most wonderful make valued at thousands or millions, gleaming white and pure to spread over them. There were large white oxen, sleek, stalwart, of great strength, handsome in form to draw the jeweled carriages, and numerous grooms and attendants to accompany and guard them. So the passage says that despite the fact that the children are pursuing things that are dangerous to them, but unknowingly they still pursue them. And for the father, or which is a metaphor for the Buddha, if he was able to get them out of the burning house, basically, providing an out or a solution to be out of the world as we know it, with all its dangers and all its attachments, and all the negative things that could bring a person down karmically. Once he's able to provide that solution, he is content and he is happy. And then upon leaving the burning house, then the children said, that now they're ready to collect their goods. And so they asked to be given their prizes, which is equivalent to the people, the sentient beings in the world, saying that we are ready now to receive our teachings of the Dharma. And it describes here the carriages and how beautiful the carriage is, and the oxen, at what strength and how handsome they are and how strong they are to be able to pull the carriages and the attendants that are there to guard them. So I feel that the gift in itself, or the blessing in itself, is the teachings of the Buddha, the teaching of the Dharma, and the oxen or the carriages or the attendants are possibly, the bodhisattvas that are in attendant to help us along at every step of the way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, before we move on, let me ask your opinions. In the Pali traditions, in Pali Kenyan tradition, so usually when the Buddha give the teaching, right, he will explain things directly. For example, the Buddha say, if you have anger, that's burn you. That's like the fire. If you have craving, yes, it's like the fire. But here in the Mahayana sutras, somehow the Buddha gives some kind of metaphor, analogies about burning house. So, William, what do you think? Is this more readable, more enjoyable to read those teaching, or you prefer to have direct teaching like in the Pali Canyon? What do you think?
Oh, wow! I'd never thought about that. I think I do like the artfulness of some of these teachings, where it's sometimes when something is so direct, it's a little bit easier to kind of if there's not as maybe much of an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just okay, anger is like a fire, it's problematic, we should drop it. But sometimes it like takes a little bit something more for someone to really understand it fully, to understand why it's like a fire. I mean, I don't know. I think they both have a place. I'm just thinking out loud because I haven't considered that before. I certainly do like this. I mean, the Lotus Sutra is even a little entertaining. So.
But sometimes, if for the beginners, when they read this kind of passage, they may not understand deeper meanings of this, right? Right. So that's the disadvantage of that. Yeah.
The first time I read it, it so quickly, it gets so dazzling in its scope that it was just hard for me to like find my bearing within it. Like there's so much of these miraculous things happening so quickly, and I wasn't used to that before. So I like read it once, waited a few years, and then came back to it and I appreciated it more then.
Yeah. How about you, Thong Thieng? You enjoy this type of elaborate explanation, a description, or you refer to have direct teaching?
I think I like both, but this one I do really like it. And it's like when the first time I read it, I would not understand it. But when I read it with wise teachers, and they gave me example of what it means, it would make me try to understand it a bit more better. Yeah, I think both ways.
Yeah. How about Miss Thang Tư? What do you think?
This is the first time for me, so I have to say it was very difficult. There are segments that I understand, but most of it I don't understand. So I didn't feel so bad when I'm hearing that everybody has read, most of you have read it already, and so the second time is better. So for me as a beginner, I would most likely want to learn first the direct, and then when I understand it, I think I would enjoy more of the metaphors and analogy. However, as we go through this and I'm hearing, the explanation, then yes, I can understand it a little bit better, but it just takes me a little bit longer to absorb the content.
Okay. How about Miss Tammy? You enjoy this kind of elaborate description and metaphor?
So, of course, when I read it, I didn't understand it. And then when it was explained to me a couple of weeks, I did not appreciate it at all. It was really hard to hear.
Okay.
Like, for whatever reason, anger is fire is one thing, being direct about it. But when it came out that, you're in a burning house, the anger, you're living in a burning house, that was really, really hard for me to take. But the more I hear it, the better it sits with me. And then her whole explanation she just gave of every different metaphor that's in the story, it's really beautiful. But at first, it was definitely very hard to swallow.
Yeah, that's why many Vietnamese people, even they don't understand much about this sutra, but they like to recite. And even some Buddhist monks or nuns, they bow word by word. One word they bowed out, one word they bowed out for the whole sutra. Yeah. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I met a mom in India. She did this. Every word she bowed one time, and then she continued word by word.
Yeah. It's a show their sincerity. Yeah. So how about Thang Nguyen? You read this sutra before, or this is the first time?
I read this sutra before, and for me, when I read it, first time I was thinking that I see this is a way of the Buddha to teach us. For me, I see that he tried to warning us, like the world we now living in is just like a burning house. Everything is impermanent, and we are like kids playing and doing things that we think is happy, it make us happy, but actually it's not. But I do have a question for Thai, like why here the Buddha says there are three kinds of hero characters. that he promised. What is that 3 and why is not 4 or 5?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what we
I don't remember that anymore.
yeah, that's what we discussed before. William, can you reply to this question? The three.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The father knew, in the analogy, the metaphor, the father knew that his sons, of the 3 sons, they each liked different sorts of carts. And so when he named, in the previous part we read about the deer cart, the ox cart, and one other, man, I already forget that other cart, but it's synonymous to the 3 vehicles that are described in that the Buddha talks about, the Arhatship, Pratyeka Buddha, and then the Bodhisattva way, which were all really, they're all really in service to the great way, the one way. But like the Buddha, if one person needs one to hear something in order to get them to start on the path, to start practicing. So the Buddha said, okay, well, one could aspire to be an arhat, or one could aspire to be a Pratyeka Buddha, or a Bodhisattva, and eventually aspire to be, a Buddha. That it was an expedient means to tell people, like getting the kids out of the burning house, is saying, I have this sort of cart for you. I have the cart of becoming an arhat. But then once they all got out of the house, then the Buddha revealed that, there's only one vehicle. All of the other vehicles are the other 2 vehicles. They're expedient means to help bring people to where they can receive the great vehicle.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Thân Như, you want to elaborate this, or you want to share anything else about this?
I think William summarized it well. Basically, it's just a little pit stops, little rest stops in between each accomplishment, broken down so that way it just doesn't seem like it's such a mouthful to have to understand, and it's such a big goal to say, I want to, become, I want to do everything to become a bodhisattva. And that's why a lot of times people, especially as we had spoken before in the Vietnamese teaching, all we've heard about was just nirvana. You pray, you be a good person, and you just reach nirvana. But the actual, the kind of nirvana that we hear of is basically only the first step. The true nirvana is actually achieving the wisdom that the bodhisattvas achieve in the path to become the Buddha. So there are the 3 vehicles are the little pit stops in between. And as William had said, the first step is arhatship, then the second step is Pratyeka Buddha, and ultimately is the becoming the Buddha or Bodhisattva. There's a chapter in the Lotus Sutra, I believe it's in the 7th chapter, where it tells you there's there is a like a made up home or a made up castle, or as a pit stop for the people who have traveled so far and now they want to turn back because they're exhausted. And that's a metaphor for students or learners of Buddhism and of the Dharma. And so the person who is leading this group is saying, okay, you're tired, don't turn back, even though you want to turn back. There's like I'll set up like a made up, I'll tell you that it's a castle or a palace, so that you can stop here on your journey, and then when you have been well rested, then we will continue on. And each of these steps, from arhatship to Pratyeka Buddha to becoming a bodhisattva, is similar to that, So these are little pit stops along the way because your journey is considered too far, and you might be so tired that you need a rest stop so that you can kind of recover and continue on, as opposed to being so discouraged that you quit altogether.
Thank you. Yes, go back to my first question. What do you think when you first read this sutra? You like to have this kind of elaborate description of the teachings like this Lotus Sutra, or you like to have direct teaching like in the Pali Canyon? What do you think?
Is that for me, Thay?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Well, the first time I read the Lotus Sutra, I read it in Vietnamese and I understood nothing. I absolutely understood nothing, but I regarded it as, I'm just going to read it and think of it as I will put in the effort, because obviously it takes time. But despite that, and I remember the only thing I understood was the burning house. But that story, but I did not made a connection as to the metaphor of the samsara cycle or the world that we live in. But that was in Vietnamese, and I read it as kind of like taking a medicine. I just took it. And then I continued on, but it wasn't until I figured I want to find this in English. And when I was having my children, I purchased the book so that it could be in English, so that way I can read and actually benefit from it. And even in that first time reading it in English, I did not understand it very well. And perhaps I regard it as, in each step of our life, when we read the sutra, depending on our development, depending on actually our karmic blessing, we put in the time and gradually we understand little by little. And when I finally understood it and I was able to analyze it with each of the metaphor, I enjoyed it much more, because I like the analysis part of it, that I can make the connection between what is taught in the sutra, the metaphors that are given in the sutra, and connect that with what is in our world that we live in. To be able to make the connection, I like that much more. I also understand that people who maybe don't like the analytical part of it, maybe they just want to have it, spoken very frankly to them and say, this is how it is. I can understand that as well. But for me, at this point, I like the analytical part of it.
Thank you. Tammy, can you share now every morning, almost every morning, right? You join with our morning recitation, and we just decide only a couple pages for the sutra, right? How much you understand that sutra when I translate into English after our recitation?
I understand it when you translate it, but it's kind of like while it's happening, I understand it. But then when I try to think back over it, I don't remember. So that's why I like to go back through it and listen to it again. That helps a lot to kind of get it down and remember what, actually put it in memory.
Okay, this is the sidelight. Can you summarize what you understand about that particular sutra? Every morning when we decide, that we call recitation, morning recitation. So we after that we decide a portion of the sutra. It says the samadhi or concentration of the Buddha's appearance at the present moment. In Vietnamese, we call Kinh Ban Chu Tam Mui. And even me, probably the first time I ever read too. So this is the opportunities for us, or even for me, to read and explain this to the Buddhist people who join in with our morning recitation. So how much you understand about that, Tammy?
Well, what I understand about it is the seeing the Buddha in present existence is with a pure mind and true concentration, that you can but go off and meditate on it and come for 1 or 7 days, however long it takes. If you continuously concentrate on it and the different features of the Buddha, then you'll be able to actually see him, whether it's in your dream or through meditation, that you'll actually be able to see the Buddha and remember the teachings that you were present for before.
Well, that's good. Thank you. And I have the opportunities to translate for you. And
yeah, it's great.
remember,
Thank you so much.
Remember, there's no English translation for that sutra yet.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm typing it up for you.
Okay. It's just a rough translation. Yeah, probably later on we could may translate word by word, but it's just a rough translation. Anyway, that's great then. Okay, so yeah, so Mr. Thang Tư, would you like to read, please?
Yes, Tay. These wonderful carriages the man presented to each of his sons alike. The sons at the time danced for joy, mounting the jewel carriages, driving off in all directions, delighting and amusing themselves freely and without hindrance. I say this to you, Sariputra, I am like this rich man. I, most venerable of the sages, am the father of this world, and all living beings are my children. But they are deeply attached to worldly pleasure and lacking in mind of wisdom. There is no safety in the threefold world. It is like a burning house, replete with a multiple of suffering, truly to be feared, constantly beset with the griefs and pains of birth, old age, sickness, and death, which are like fires raging fiercely and without cease. That thus come one has already left the burning house of the threefold world and dwells in tranquil quietude in the safety of forest and plain. But now this threefold world is all my domain, and the living beings in it are all my children. Now this place is beset by many pains and trivials. So basically, it's saying even though the sons are happy and they are out in this world, however, now you going outside, you out in this world, but you still have to worry, right? Because there's a lack of wisdom. And so in this world, just like the burning house, you have suffering, you have fear, you have grief, you deal with old age, sickness and health, death. So regardless how you want to look at the world in itself, it's just like the burning house. There's still pain and suffering. But this is what it's saying is this is his children, and yet it's I guess the correlation is that the burning house is like us out here. We still have to deal with the pain and the suffering.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, go back to Thong Nguyen question. So like William and Ms. Thong you just explained. So like you asked the question, why not 2, 4, or 5 again? In Buddhism, we have the three, what do you call the three vehicles. So the arhat, I think we discussed about before. So let's say if you can get out the burning house, but your children, your siblings, your parents, and whoever you love still there, I think all boys would not leave them, right? So we have to find some ways to get them out. So that's why the Buddha say, okay, with the arhatship, yes, you can finish up your rebirth cycle. That's for yourself, no one else. That's you finish the birth cycle. But again, in this sutra, especially this Mahaya Buddhist sutra, the Buddha say no, this is just the temporary, or like Miss Thang Như just mentioned, the next chapter. That the chapter later on that we will read is like the transformation city, the arhatship stage. Spiritually, it's just considered the transformation city. That's for you to rest for a while, because the Buddha is concerned that they may retreat. So that's just one part. Another part is what we call solitary Buddha. That means they practice the Dharma by themselves, they attain enlightenment themselves, and they don't want to teach anyone else except themselves. So that's the two parts. And the last part, what we call Bodhisattva or Buddha part, that's what the Buddha wants us to practice. Why we help ourselves to transform all kind of sufferings in this burning house. We help others so that eventually we can reach the Buddhahood or become a Buddhas. So that is the main goal of the Buddha appearance on this earth. So that's why here the Buddha gave analogy that, oh yes, he promised his children that if they get out the house, the burning house, he would give them all the ox courage, the sheep and the deer courage. But when they get out the house, a burning house, he gave them only one, the ox one. That means in Buddhist term, that is the goal for the Buddha one. That's the goal that the Buddha wants us to achieve to become Buddha, so that we can help ourselves and help others. So that's the importance in this particular sutra. So Thân Nguyên, you follow?
Yeah, thank you, Thầy.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So let's see, let's move on. Yeah, go ahead, Tammy, you like to read, please?
I'm the only person who can rescue and protect others. But though I teach and instruct them, they do not believe or accept my teaching because, taunted by desires, they are deeply immersed in greed and attachment. So I employ an expedient means, describing to them the three vehicles, causing all living beings to understand the pains of the threefold world, and then I set forth and expound a way whereby they can escape from the world. If these children of mine will only determine in their minds to do so, they can acquire all the three understandings, and the six transcendental powers can become Parka Buddhas or Bodhisattvas who never regress. I say to you, Sariputta, for the sake of living beings, I employ these similes and parables to preach the single Buddha vehicle. If you and the others are capable of believing and accepting my words, then all of you are certain to attain the Buddha way. This vehicle is subtle, wonderful, foremost in purity. Throughout all the worlds it stands unsurpassed. So he's saying that he's the only one that can teach and protect others through his teachings, but they don't understand because they're so attached to worldly desires. So he employed expedient means to help everyone understand better. But he explains that it's possible for everyone to obtain Buddhahood.
Yeah, thank you. John, are you there, John? Thân Thiện, John's there.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to read next one, please?
Let's see.
Here, the
Buddha delights in and proves it. All living beings should praise it, offer it alms and obeisance. There are immeasurable thousands of millions of powers, patient meditations, wisdoms, and other attributes of the Buddha. But the children can obtain this vehicle and allow them day and night for innumerable kalpas to find constant enjoyment, to join the Bodhisattva and the multitude of voice hearers in mounting this jewel vehicle and proceeding directly to the place of practice. For these reasons, though one should seek diligently in the 10 directions, he will find no other vehicle except when Buddha preaches them an expedient means. I tell you, Sariputta, you and the others are all my children. I am a father to you. For repeated kalpas, they have burned in the flames of manifold suffering, but I will save you all and cause you to escape from the threefold world. Although earlier I told you you had attained extinction, that was only the end of birth and death. It was not true extinction.
Can you summarize, please?
Let's see, I think just from reading, I think like the first half of it, I think from here, like the children can obtain this vehicle. I'm thinking it's like be able to like attain like the knowledge like the Buddha gives. Let's see from like the bottom one. So it's saying like, should I put to you and all the other, so my children, and I am a father to you. So at the bottom one, from what I'm seeing, so the couples you have burned in the flames of the manifold suffering. So like, Buddha saying something like about Buddha saving and cause you to escape the threefold world.
Okay, thank you. So anyway, so again, the Buddha emphasized here, right? So at first, Buddha get the teaching of, let's say, Four Noble Truths and the Four Paths, so that people can attain arhatship to get out of the birth cycle in this passage, to get out of this burning house. But Buddha, in this sutra or passage, Buddha say, no, that's not enough. It's not the true extinction of the burning house. You need to move on. Yeah. Okay, Thân Nguyên, you like to read, please?
So I read the last sentence.
Yeah, now.
Yeah, now what is needed is simply that you acquire Buddha wisdom. If there are Bodhisattva here in this assembly, let them with a single mind listen to the true law of the Buddhas. So the Buddhas, the word honest ones, employ experiments means the living beings converted by them are all Bodhisattva. If there are persons of little wisdom who are deeply attached to love and desire, because they are that way, the Buddha breathed of them the rule of suffering. When the living beings will be glad in mind, having gained what they never had before, the rule of suffering which the Buddha preached is true and never varies. If there are living beings who do not understand the root of suffering, who are deeply attached to the cause of suffering, and cannot for a moment put them aside because they are that way, the Buddha used experiment means to bridge the way. As to the cause of all suffering, it has its root in greed and desire. If greed and desire are wiped out, it will have no place to dwell. To wipe out all suffering, this is called the third rule. For the sake of this rule, the rule of extinction, one practice the way. And when one escapes from the bounds of suffering, this is called attaining, I cannot read underline, emancipation.
Yeah, I think that you can stop here. There's a lot. You go ahead, please. Can you summarize?
Yes. So in here, the Buddha gave us the root. Give us some example. The roots of the suffering that we have as a human being. For example, like greed or desire. And then he also gave some way or tools to help us how we can see all of our own suffering. And most of the suffering that we are in the human being are suffer our attachment to what is outside of us. And when one can escape from all this bound of suffering or attachment, then we can attain the Buddhahood, or we can be less suffering. That's what I understand from the summary.
What did you know? What's mean this patient? You know what's mean?
Yeah, the state of free from suffering and being equanimous with what is around us.
Yeah, that's called liberation. We're free from the birth cycle. We're free from greed, hatred, and so forth. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, thầy giáo pháp, please.
Yeah, no. By what means can a person attain emancipation? Separating oneself from falsehood and delusion. This alone may be called emancipation. But if a person have not truly been able to emancipate himself from everything, then the Buddha will say he have not achieved true extinction, because such a person have not yet gained the unsurpassed way. My purpose is not to try to cause them to reach extinction. I am the Dharma King, free to do as I will with the law, to bring the peace and safety to living beings. That is the reason I appear in the world. I say you, Sariputta, this Dharma shield of my I reach, because I wish to bring benefit to the world. You must not recklessly transmit it wherever you happen to wander. If there is someone who hears it, respond with joy and gratefully accept it, you should know that person is an Evivatika. If there is someone who believes and accepts the law of this sutra, that person have already seen the Buddha of the past and respectfully offer alms to them and listen to this law. Basically, in here, the Buddha said that if the ones who not yet be able to separate from the falsehood and delusion, so that means they will not be able to attend the emancipation, and that means it's not truly. I think it's not truly attend the true extinction. Then that means they will, and that is the reason the Buddha appeared in this world to teach this Dhamma and to benefit the living being for all. And he said that it's not easy for anyone to hear this kind of Dhamma and accept it, because it's not that easy. If the one who be able to believe it and accept the law of this sutra, that person has already seen the Buddha in the past. So that means it's very rare to for someone to believe and accept the law for this kind of sutra.
Yeah, thank you. So anyways, from the top, the Buddha explained again that if someone hear his teaching of the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering, the cause sufferings, the cessation of suffering, the last one is the path how to end the suffering. But again, the Buddha say that's not, if even they attain to that kind of state, the R state, that they cut off all the desire or anger. Again, that's not true extinction. They need to move on. In order to move on, they need to have the strong faith with the Buddha. And only when they accumulate tremendous blessings, merits in the past, they could understand and accept the teaching Otherwise, it's not easy. All right. So since it's time up, anyone you want to share anything? William, you want to share anything? Want to say anything before we end? Oh, can you turn on the mic, please?
Yes. What is an avivartika?
Let me see. I could not recognize this word. Let me see here. Let me do research. I don't recognize this word. Yeah, probably next week we can discuss about this word. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. About Miss Thân Tư, Miss Thân Như, you want to have any question, anything to add before we end?
No, Thầy, I am fine. Thank you, Thầy.
I just wanted to just elaborate one quick thing in answering Miss Tung's question about the 3 steps or the three rests. And I think it, because I've read this a few times, and each time I try to make a connection. And I remember taking some notes on it, that the 3 vehicles or the 3 carts, and I don't know if I'm correct, but I remember taking notes that, so the sheep carriage represented the Arhat step or the Sravaka vehicle. And that's the step where you learn about the 4 noble truths. Then the next step would be the deer carriage, or it would be the Pratyeka Buddha part. And that is when you are taught dependent origination. So with this, you get that. Without this, you don't, so the cause and effect part of it. And then the third part is to become to follow the Bodhisattva path. That's the part where you actually learn the 6 perfections. So I was trying to figure out what each of the 3 carriages mean, but I think each of the 3 carriages represent each of the teachings of each of those steps.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, William Wise, Miss Thân Như was talking. I just type on the Google search. This is our teacher now, right? Just mean the stage of non-regression in Buddhist practice. So ones who reach this stage never backslides, who advance toward the Buddhahood. I could not recognize this word. Yeah, okay. This one. Okay. All right.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so thank you. So thanks for your participation, and again, happy Thanksgiving holidays. Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Happy
so
Thank you,
holidays.
Thầy.
thank you.
Thank you.
So see.
Thank you, Tay, and everyone.
Yeah.